Hi guys, my name is Martina. I am a portrait artist based in Austria, and today in this video I am going to show you the painting process of another watercolor painting. I really loved it so much the last time, so I decided to do another one. Stay tuned. As you can see, I am back again with a new watercolor painting. Funny enough, my last video also featured a watercolor piece. That one, however, I had already finished back in May. This painting, on the other hand, I started right after editing this previous video. I was so inspired by the colors and the process that I felt the urge to dive right into another watercolor artwork. At the moment, during my free phases, meaning the times when I'm not working on commissions, I am focusing on creating pieces for upcoming fairs and markets. Most of those works will be acrylic paintings in a 10 by 10 format, 10 by 10 centimeters. But I thought it would also be really nice to create some original pieces like this one here, in an A4 size. I think such works are something truly special, and they will surely find a wonderful home with a happy collector. Here you can see me laying down the first few layers. I started with the background, working wet on wet. That means I first applied a layer of clear water onto the paper and then went in with my mixed colors while the surface is still wet, letting them flow and blend beautifully. Once the background was done, I moved on to the hair and the face again using my watercolors. The paints I'm working with are from Schminke, Winsor Newton and Daniel Smith. I absolutely love these brands and I am very happy with the results. They all have a wonderful vibrancy and luminosity. Plus, an extra bonus is their high lightfastness. Normally, watercolor pigments can be quite sensitive to sunlight and may fade over time. But with these paints, the artwork lasts much longer, which makes me very glad. Another reason I enjoy these paints is that most of them are staining or non-lifting, meaning they don't come off easily once applied. This allows me to build up many layers without disturbing the ones underneath. Most of the shades I use are also non-granulating, which is my personal preference, although I do have a few granulating colors in my palette as well. Right now I'm working on painting the skin tones, which are meant to give the impression of being underwater. At this stage it looks still a bit strange, mainly because the background is still too light. As I move forward, I will be darkening the background with deeper shades of green and blue. In some areas I even mix in touches of brown or violet to add more depth and dimension. And here you can already start to see the effect. The skin doesn't appear overly dark anymore, simply because it's surrounded by darker tones. That's the beauty of watercolor. Once you place different values and colors next to each other, the contrast starts to balance out and you can really judge whether something is too light or too dark. really deep in the ugly stage. At this point, it's always this feeling, should I give up? Should I continue? But yeah, I know if I'm going to continue, there is a high chance that the end result is really good. So I'm hoping that's the case for this. Oh, hi. Yeah, we will see. As I mentioned earlier, I'm right in the middle of the so-called ugly phase. At this stage, it doesn't really look like apples or pears or bananas. It just looks a bit odd. There isn't enough contrast yet in the portrait. The background is still too light and overall it simply lacks definition. But with each additional layer, the painting will gradually become more realistic and more refined. Right now I'm working on shading the hair and carefully building in darker tones. With watercolor, you usually work from light to dark, and that's exactly what I am doing. In a moment, you will see me using white watercolor, which is quite similar to gouache. The big advantage is that it's opaque, so I can mix it with my regular watercolor to create soft pastel-like effects. With this technique, I'm adding the lighter strands of hair on top. Of course, you could use gouache instead, but my white watercolor was just within reach, so that's what I used to add the highlights. Now these highlights will dry a little darker, especially if you apply them in a very concentrated way. Since I wanted to keep things subtle here, I didn't go too heavy with the application. And as the painting progresses, you will notice how the color settles during the drying process. I will be applying the same method to the roses, layering darker tones first, then bringing in lighter watercolor and touches of white for definition. At this point, I'm also starting to get my colored pencils ready, sharpening them up one by one. I will be using Faber-Castell Polychromos, Caran d'Ache Luminance and Derwent Lightfast pencils. And just like with watercolors, lightfastness is incredibly important to me, especially when combining color pencils with watercolor. I want the artwork to last and stay vibrant for years to come. That's why I always invest in light fast products. For me, it's absolutely essential and I can only recommend it to anyone who sells their art. As you can see, I am now using my colored pencils. Fun fact, back in the day I used to draw almost exclusively with colored pencils. They were my first medium and my absolute favorite for many years. At the beginning, I only used kit pencils from the Austrian brand Jolly and plain printer paper. Looking back, that was probably the worst possible combination. Low pigmented pencils on paper that just wasn't meant for art. Still, I loved it and created tons of drawings with it. I also worked a lot with graphite in those days. As my creative journey went on, I moved into pastels. And if you've seen some of my older videos, you know I slowly started experimenting with acrylics and oils too. Just to expand my horizon and try new things. But honestly, I still adore colored pencils because you can get such an incredible amount of detail within them. The only drawback, in my opinion, is that achieving really bright highlights over deep darks can be tricky. Pastels make that part really easy. But with the right paper, like the hot pressed watercolor paper I'm using here, it works beautifully. It has just enough texture so you can actually layer white over darker areas. Pastel matte paper by Clairefontaine is also a fantastic option for that. The pastel matte paper I am always using for my pastel paintings. And if you use high quality pencils like the white from Caran d'Ache Luminance or the Derwent drawing range, you can achieve stunning effects. In a moment you will see me adding some little bubbles around the roses. For that I first use pure white gouache and then I go back in with different pencils, Arctic white and a mix of lighter and darker shades to give the bubbles more depth and detail. That's how you can really create the floating bubble effect. Alright my loves, we are coming to the last few minutes. Thank you so much for watching and I truly hope to see you again next time. Sending you lots of love and until then, enjoy those final moments. Bye! Hi! So, I am finally done. Here is my latest watercolor painting. I really like the outcome. At certain parts I did not know if I'm capable of finishing it right and doing this beautiful girl justice, but I think she turned out really cool. What do you think? And if you like this video, please consider to like, share and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you a wonderful day, night or evening, wherever and whenever you are watching this video. Thank you guys and I hope we are going to see us next time. Bye!